The crack echoed through the Colosseum. Elvis looked down at the splintered neck of his guitar, his main stage companion. For a moment he just stared. Then, with a half-smile, he stepped toward the edge of the stage in Greensboro. Stories like this remind us that the smallest moments can mean the world. Stick around, because what Elvis does next would leave one fan with a memory that's lasted a lifetime. The sound was sharp, like a bone snapping. It echoed off the concrete walls of the Greensboro Coliseum. Elvis Presley froze mid-strum. His eyes dropped to the neck of his Gibson. Splintered. The band kept going for half a beat, horns punching through the tension. Elvis chuckled into the mic, a low rumble that carried across the arena. Then he tapped the mic stand twice, the way he always did when something unexpected happened. It was March 14, 1975. Nearly 18,000 people packed the Coliseum, the air thick with cigarette smoke and perfume. Spotlights cut through the haze, catching flecks of dust that swirled in slow motion. Elvis stood in the center, his white jumpsuit alive with rhinestones that threw shards of light into the first row. His hair was perfect, slicked, black with a hint of sweat at the edges from the opening number. The song was C.C. Rider, his standard opener. His pick had just snapped, ricocheting off the stage floor. In the same motion, his left hand gripped the neck a little too hard, and that's when it gave way with a sickening crack. He turned the guitar slightly, running his fingers over the jagged wood. You could almost hear the hiss from the amps fill the gap where his strumming had been. The audience didn't boo. They didn't gasp. They leaned in, thousands of bodies tilting forward like a single wave. A woman in the second row clutched her program to her chest. An usher stopped mid-step, eyes locked on the stage. Even the security guards by the exits glanced over. Elvis smiled, not the stage smile, but the smaller, private one, the kind that made you feel like you'd caught him in a secret. He lifted the guitar high for everyone to see. "This old girl's had enough," he said, his southern drawl wrapping around the word. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but then he did something nobody expected. He started walking toward the very edge of the stage. The spotlight followed him as he scanned the front rows. His boots clicked against the boards. Every few steps he stopped, leaning just slightly, eyes searching. The broken Gibson swung loosely in his grip. From the back you couldn't tell if he was looking for a security guard or a lucky fan, but up close, those in the first few rows could see it. His focus had narrowed. By the time he reached stage right, the band had dropped to a slow vamp, filling the room with a heartbeat rhythm. Elvis planted one foot on a monitor, the guitar dangling in one hand. Then, without saying a word, he locked eyes with someone in the crowd. The music softened, the lights tightened. Elvis took one step down toward the front row, the broken guitar still in his hand. Fade to black. The spotlight swept like a lighthouse beam searching. Elvis shaded his eyes with one hand, scanning faces as if he were looking for someone he already knew. "Who wants a guitar?" he called into the mic. The crowd roared, screams, whistles, hands reaching up like flowers straining for the sun. From the stage, the first few rows glittered, sequined tops, rhinestone belts, hair sprayed into perfect helmets. Programs rustled, cameras clicked, the kind that wound film after every shot. The smell of hairspray mixed with the faint tang of beer from plastic cups under folding chairs. Elvis took another step forward. His boots caught the edge light, polished black against the scuffed wood of the stage. Then he stopped. His smile faded, just a touch. His head tilted like he'd heard something under the noise. An usher on the aisle later told reporters she'd never forget it. How his eyes locked. How everything else in the arena seemed to blur. In the third seat from the aisle sat a boy, maybe 12. Red baseball cap pulled low. In his lap, a cardboard sign in black marker. "Play it for my dad." Beside him, an older man, thin, pale, an oxygen tube running to a small green tank by his feet. The man's hand rested gently on the boy's shoulder, steadying him against the surge of bodies in the row. The band kept up, a soft groove. Horns holding long notes. Elvis crouched, balancing on one knee at the stage's edge. He leaned forward far enough that the front row could see the creases at the corner of his eyes. "Hey there, son," he said, voice low but caught by a mic near. A cheer rolled through the Coliseum like a wave breaking against rock. The boy's eyes darted from Elvis to his father, then back. He gripped his sign tighter, knuckles white. Elvis held the broken guitar sideways so the boy could see the crack in the neck. His thumb brushed the strings, letting them hum once before fading into the air. Then slowly he extended it toward the boy, not tossed, not handed down to the crowd at random. He held it out like an offering, his gaze locked in place. The boy didn't move. His father nodded, and still, the boy hesitated. The arena had gone quieter now. You could hear the faint buzz from the amplifiers, the cough of someone in the balcony. Elvis leaned in, close enough that only the first few rows could catch his word. According to one woman seated nearby, his voice dropped to almost a whisper. Whatever he said next made the boy's mouth fall open. His grip loosened on the sign. His other hand slowly lifted toward the guitar. But before anyone could see the boy take it, Elvis spoke again, this time even softer, as if this part was meant for just the two of them. Cut to black. Witnesses say you could feel it, an invisible thread between the stage and that third row seat. Elvis leaned in, his voice barely above the hum of the amps. "Your daddy played, didn't he?" The boy nodded. Up close, the Gibson's body still held warmth from the stage lights. The metal frets glinted. A faint smell of sweat and lacquer drifted from the wood. Elvis rested the guitar across the boy's lap, his large hands covering both the instrument and the boy's small fingers, for a second longer than necessary. "Now," Elvis said, "you play for him. No theatrics, no flourish. Just that line, steady and low, for a heartbeat silent." Then the arena erupted. Cheers, applause, whistles bouncing off the high rafters. People were on their feet. The boy clutched the guitar, eyes wide, lips parted. He glanced at his father, who gave the smallest, proudest nod. Elvis straightened, spun the mic stand toward him, and grinned. "Now, where were we?" The band snapped back into full tempo. Horns blaring, drums kicking. The crowd was different now, more than just excited. They were part of something they'd all remember. Halfway through the next verse, Elvis stepped toward the boy again. Without missing a beat, he pulled a scarf from around his neck, white, damp from the heat, and tossed it gently so it landed across the Gibson's cracked neck. He winked, just once, then turned back to the stage light. The giant video screens, still a novelty in 1975, caught the boy's stunned expression. His eyes glistened, his jaw trembled, but his grip on the guitar never wavered. Across the Coliseum, strangers who couldn't hear the earlier whisper still felt the weight of. The rest of the concert roared on. But backstage later, something unusual happened. A stagehand passing by saw Elvis sitting at a folding table, hotel stationery pulled from his jacket pocket. He was writing quickly, pen scratching, head bent. When he finished, he folded the paper, slid it into an envelope, and handed it to a young runner with instructions. The runner nodded, tucked the envelope into his vest, and disappeared into the night. No one in the crew knew what was in that envelope. Some thought it was a thank you note to a friend in town. Others guessed it was directions for a delivery. But in less than 12 hours, it would be in the hands of that boy's family. The broken Gibson still sat in the boy's lap when the house lights came up, strings buzzing faintly as the crowd filed out. Somewhere out there, the runner was already on his way. Fade to black. The chill of that night still clung to the air the next morning. The boy's family was loading their suitcases into the trunk of a dusty blue sedan outside a modest roadside motel when the door to the lobby swung open. A hotel clerk in a brown polyester vest jogged toward them, clutching a rectangular package against his chest. No return address, just their room number scrawled on a white paper tag. "Think this is for you," the clerk said, slightly out of breath. The boy's father took it, his fingers trembling a little as he peeled away the brown paper wrap. Underneath was a polished black guitar case, brass latches gleaming in the early sun. The leather handle was warm from the clerk's hands. The boy reached out, his palm resting on the cool, smooth lid before looking at his dad for permission. The father nodded. Inside the case, nestled in red velvet lining, was a brand new Gibson acoustic. It gleamed as if it had been built just for him. A folded piece of hotel stationery lay on top of the strings. The father opened it slowly. In Elvis's unmistakable scrawl, "For your boy, so he can play for you." Elvis. For a long moment, no one spoke. The morning traffic hummed on the highway nearby. Somewhere a bird chirped. Then, according to the mother's later account, the father's shoulders began to shake. He pressed the back of his hand to his mouth. His eyes welled, but he didn't hide. The boy glanced between the guitar and his father, then reached in and gently plucked one string. The note rang pure in the cool air. Other guests, dragging luggage to their cars, slowed their pace. A truck driver leaned on his horn in encouragement as he even the clerk lingered, a smile tugging at his face. It was like the crowd from the night before had followed them here, smaller but just as connected. The father rested his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Guess you're starting lessons sooner than we thought," he said softly. Neither of them could have guessed that this same guitar would one day return to a stage. Decades later, by the time they pulled onto the highway, the morning had brightened. The boy sat in the back seat, case open beside him, strumming softly. The smell of fresh varnish filled the car. Every time he hit a chord, his father's head tilted just slightly toward the sound. They drove past green fields and faded billboards, the Gibson's notes weaving with the hum of tires on asphalt. Sometimes the father closed his eyes, letting the music fill the space between them. The mother glanced at the rearview mirror, catching the boy's concentrated frown as he tried to remember the finger positions Elvis had shown him the night before. The guitar stayed with them through the years, through school, through the father's good days and bad. It never gathered dust. And years later, under very different lights, that same boy, now grown, would carry it on stage. What the audience would see that night was more than just a song. Fade to black. The theater was small, maybe 200 seats, no roaring arena, no giant spotlight, just a single warm beam pooling on a man in his 40s, a Gibson guitar resting against his leg. It was a community hall in a quiet southern town. The air smelled faintly of coffee from the concession stand, and the stage boards creaked under his. In the front row, locals sat with programs folded in their laps. A few had heard whispers about tonight's song, but most didn't know the story. He adjusted the mic stand, glanced at the guitar case beside him, and smiled. "This one," he said, "started a long time ago." And he told them about the Greensboro Coliseum, about the broken guitar, about the boy in the red cap and the man with the oxygen tank. His voice caught once, but he kept going. Then he flipped open the case and pulled out the same Gibson Elvis had sent him all those years ago. The first chord rang out, clear, warm, filling the room. He played not with flash, but with a steady, heartfelt rhythm. Some swore they saw his eyes glisten when he glanced at the empty seat in the front row, where his father would have sat. As the last chord of the song faded, the silence was complete. The audience sat still, holding the moment, like breath. Then, as if on cue, applause swelled, loud, warm, and full of something deeper than politeness. After the show, he returned to the small dressing room. The case sat open on the chair. Tucked inside the velvet lining was something he hadn't taken out in years. The original broken neck from that night in Greensboro, still splintered, still bearing the wear from Elvis's hand. Wrapped around it was the scarf Elvis had tossed to him that same evening, now faded but still carrying the faint scent of cologne. He touched the wood and smiled. The years between that boy and this man seemed to collapse. One night, one gesture, had shaped decades, turning a splintered instrument into a living reminder of kindness. Some acts fade, others stay sharp as the moment they happened. This one had lasted a lifetime. If this moved you, share it with someone who believes music and kindness can last forever. What's one small kindness you've never forgotten?